invested alongside Bono, mentored Mark Zuckerberg, and made an early investment in Facebook. Roger McNamee made his name betting on tech through the 80s and 90s, then co-founded the private equity firm Silverlake and Elevation Partners. Never one to shy away from voicing his opinion, McNamee now has a new message for Facebook. They're getting it all wrong, dividing countries and putting democracy in peril. Joining me today on Bloomberg Studio 1.0, longtime tech investor Roger McNamee. Roger, great to have you here.
Emily, this is a great honor to be on your show.
You've been on Bloomberg Technology so many times, but I have never had the opportunity to ask, how did Roger McNamee become Roger McNamee? So I'm glad we have a chance to do that here today.
So I grew up in Albany, New York. I had a wonderful childhood, and I had a lot of health problems as a little kid. I developed a condition at age 2, a digestive disorder. At 10, I had a traumatic injury that required life-saving surgery. It was one of those experiences that you come through and it forms your personality in an interesting way.
How did this
I
became
more introverted and more, essentially, I got really used to having to go my own way, because the digestive disorder that I'd had from age 2 to roughly that same period of time meant I couldn't eat anything with that had any grain in it. Mm-hmm. And you grew up without birthday cakes and cookies and bread and cereal and all those kinds of things. And you have to develop tremendous self-control. And you're sitting there going, well, you're going to become an investor. What are some traits that are really useful?
Did you want to become an investor when you were a child?
No, I knew nothing about it. But I'm just saying, when I look back on it, the experiences from 0 to 10 had a huge influence. It's that willingness to do it my own way, you know, to be different from everybody else, because from 0 to 10, I was always different from all of my classmates.
You went to Yale, though.
I did,
and
but I was also.
You went to Yale and you dropped out.
What I did was I took a 1-year leave, but my father died. And with him went the family finances. Mm. And so my mother was forced to sell the family house at a huge loss, and there was no money to pay for college. So I stayed out for 2.5 years. And I got really lucky. I found a job where I was selling advertising space for little weekly newspapers. And I was both selling and collecting, which is really interesting, because you have to learn to analyze businesses to figure out which ones are actually going to pay you. You know, you don't want to sell it to somebody who won't pay you, so it's got to really work. And that's when I discovered Wall Street. And I bought 100 shares of a little airplane company called Beach Aircraft. They made, you know, they had a brand new plane then called the King Air. And the stock went up $6, from $20 to $26. Like the first week I owned it, I thought I was the second coming of Jay Gould. And at that point, I had the bug. But I didn't know you could work there. I didn't, you know, I mean, I wasn't going to be a trader, and I wasn't going to be, I mean, I didn't know what the jobs were that they had. But I earned enough money and I went back to college. And then I figured out, wow, you can actually get a job. People get paid to do research. But I managed to persuade Goldman Sachs to give me a job in municipal finance in the summer of 1981. And for those who haven't studied history, 1981 was the year that interest rates peaked for all time. T-bills went to like 21% or something. And municipal bonds with a AAA rating were like 15 or 16% yield. So I go back to business school, and it's 1981. We're in a bear market. There are no jobs anywhere. I sent a resume off to T. Rowe Price Associates, a mutual fund company in Baltimore. I go in for my closing interview at the end of this 2-day thing, and I sit down next to the head guy and I go, I love this place. I want to work here, but I know you're not going to hire me. And I give him 3 reasons why they're not going to hire me. And I watch his face and I realize, like, it's like a cartoon. His whole expression, he's like totally shocked. And there's this pause. He goes, this is amazing. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I wasn't going to hire you. And there were 3 reasons why I wasn't going to do it. And you got them in the correct order. He said, we're in the business of hiring people who are good judges of people and situations, who can anticipate what other people are thinking and feeling. That was as good a piece of, I've never seen anybody try that tactic before. That was a great piece of analysis. Would you like to come work at T. Rowe Price? And I said, you betcha.
So you went on to run the Science and Technology Fund at T. Rowe Price.
I did. But the brilliant thing was, starting my career in the first day of a bull market, being assigned to cover technology, meant that the first rule of Wall Street, right, is timing is everything.
So were you smart or were you lucky?
I was totally lucky. What I'm saying is you can explain my entire career on the basis of a great starting date and being assigned to a sector that was the dominant growth sector of the U.S. economy for the entirety of my career. So
good timing.
Pure dumb luck, okay? And so I get there, things go up, they go down. Tech's terrible in the 80s. They create this thing called Science and Technology Fund. 19 days before the crash in 1987. 2 other guys are running it. The thing's down 31% after a month. They move the guys off and say, Roger, why don't you take over? And I said, cool, but you got to let me do it my way. And they said, this is what I love about T-Row. They said, fine, do it your way. And so I spent 120 to 150 days a year traveling. At a time when I did a study of this, when institutional investors, top analysts were doing 29 company visits a year, I was doing 400 face-to-face meetings with companies. Nobody had done that before on Wall Street, and so in this late 80s, and it worked so well in tech.
You went on to co-found Silverlake.
Silverlake, we literally raised the money in 1999, and then we buy 3 stocks that I wasn't deeply involved in. Seagate Technology, the world's largest disk drive company. A thing called Daytech, which you would now know as Ameritrade, the stock brokerage company, online brokerage. But they also had this amazing technology platform that now drives NASDAQ, so there were 2 pieces of that. And then Gartner Group, which was a consulting firm in the technology world. And so we did like 6 deals that first year, but I did 3 of them, and those were the 3. And we did them right at the top of the market in the second quarter of 2000. I mean, you'd think nothing would work, but we got very lucky again, and the strategy worked really well.
So, as I understand it, you got pushed out.
So what happened here was Apple introduced a product called the iPod. Initially, it was just on Macintosh. And I called up Steve Jobs and I said, man, this is really amazing. Your stock, your company options are 40, the stock's at 12. You have $12 of share of cash. The stock's trading for cash value. Your options are 40. That's nuts. Let's do an LBO. Steve goes, I don't want to do an LBO, but if you want to do it, you can buy up to 18% of the company in the public market, come on the board, and we'll do this thing together. And I took that idea to Silverlake, and they said, no.
Steve wanted you to join the board of Apple. And Silverlake said no.
Well, Silverlake said no to the whole deal. And then Bono calls up, and Bono says, I want to buy Universal Music Group. And they say, well, we love this idea, but we don't want you to do it. I went, what do you mean you don't want to do it? He wants me to do it. Why don't you want me to do it? I'm your partner. They said, well, we think it's time for you to go. I went, really? I mean, after Daytech and Seagate and Gartner, you want me to go? I mean, Apple? Anyway, they said, yeah. Anyway, so I went, okay. And I mean, I was really crushed. I mean, this thing had started in my office. It was my idea. And, it was hugely successful, and I had just been voted out. But I'm in New York. I call Bono up to say, I don't think the deal's happening because I'm leaving the firm. And Bono said, well, the heck with them. We'll start our own firm the same day. And so it's like, oh, you want to do a firm? You want to be in the investment business? He goes, no, I really do. He said, I think I can help my work in Africa by raising my profile among the people I raise money from Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Rupert Murdoch and people like that. He loved raising money. He was incredible at it. And every company we invested in wanted to be like Bono, wanted to be like you too. So he would go in and he would talk to the employees of Palm or Facebook or whatever. And he was so motivating. It was just a game-changing thing. We had 1 day a week of his time. And we were really open about this. But the thing is, 1 day at Bono there was nothing like him in that world. If you're trying to invest at the intersection of technology and media, he's a game-changing thing. And the fact that he wasn't a hood ornament, that he was actually intimately involved. And whenever we had some strong personalities, and he was always the one who resolved all the internal issues. It was just amazing. And he's such a beautiful person. He's that rare celebrity who is in real life all the good things that you see in their celebrity, and then a whole bunch more.
You think that Facebook is in an existential crisis?
Oh, I do.
You met Mark Zuckerberg in 2006.
I get a phone call from Chris Kelly, who is the chief privacy officer, so one of the senior executives. He goes, my boss has an existential crisis. I can't tell you what it is, but I think you're the right guy to help him solve it. He comes in, he's 22 years old. It's like March of 2006.
2 years after Facebook was founded.
Correct. And I think they had 9 million in revenue at that point, cumulative. And I, sitting here, and I said, Mark, we've never met each other. I need to tell you something before we start. I said, because if I don't tell you now, you'll never believe me later. You'll just assume I'm trying to appeal to you. So I think you have created the most important company since Google, that within a few years you'll be bigger than Google is today. And I think the secret is you've solved the problem of identity and you take privacy seriously. Those two values are really powerful. And I said that the problem with this whole thing is that if it hasn't happened already, either Microsoft or Yahoo is going to offer $1 billion for your company. Your parents, your board of directors, your management team, and your employees are all going to tell you to take it. Your lead venture investor is going to say he'll back your next company. You'll have $650 million. You could be a philanthropist, change the world. You're only 22. Your whole future's in front of you. You'll just do another thing as cool as Facebook. And I'm here to tell you that's nuts. No one has ever been able to replicate both the great idea at the perfect time. You don't get a chance to do that a second time. And you either miss on the timing or you miss on the idea. And I said, you'll never get a chance. If you believe in this idea, you have to remind everybody that they got involved in this thing because of this mission that you are on, and that they can't force you off of it. There then ensued the longest, most painful silence of my entire career. And he's like a cartoon character. He goes like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. It seemed like it went on for an hour. It probably only went on for 4 or 5 minutes, but I'm dying. It's like, what do you do? I've never seen anybody do this before. Finally, literally, a cloud bubble appears over his head, and you can see that his blood pressure comes down. He goes, you're not even going to believe this. I go, what? In my bag here, I have a contract to buy the company for $1 billion from one of those two companies, and every single thing you said has already happened. And it all happened in the last 2 days. I said, well, do you want to sell the company? He goes, no, but I don't want to disappoint all these people. I said, you won't be disappointing them. This is such a good idea that they will be happy that you turned it down. And that began a 4-year period where I was one of his mentors.
What did he come to you with?
At the beginning, the company didn't have the right set of people. And so there was an issue with one of the senior executives. Then there was a magazine article, Harvard Alumni Magazine, thing about the Winklevoss brothers that created enormous issues for him. And so I helped him get through those sorts of things. And then the smartphone thing started to happen. Mobile became real. And he didn't believe in mobile, and not at the beginning. And so I had the ability to bring really great technologists in to help him understand mobile. And so in the end, that wound up being an important thing that I did. And
you also helped him meet Sheryl Sandberg.
Well, so when Mark has this problem that it's time to monetize, and he's having all these issues with some of his senior executives, I said, look, there is no exactly comparable thing here. The closest thing anybody's done is creating AdWords. I know the person who did it. It's Sheryl Sandberg. Have you ever met her? He said, I think I shook her hands once at a party. I don't know her at all. And I said, I want to try to get her to come and talk to you about being your chief operating officer. And next thing you know, she goes there as the chief operating officer, at which point, basically, they didn't need me anymore. I mean, she's way smarter than I am. I mean, one of the most capable people I have ever met in any way.
So how much Facebook stock did you buy, ultimately?
Well, I didn't buy that much, but it turned into a lot of value, right?
How much did you make?
A lot. I mean, for me, it was really important. Facebook was weird. It was like it was the gift that just kept on giving.
So fast forward to today. You think that Facebook is in an existential crisis.
Oh, I do.
And you have not been shy about it.
No. Well, what happened was early in 2016, I noticed bad actors doing things on the platform. And I didn't know what I was seeing. Initially, it was in the Democratic primary in February of 2016. Then it was related to a firm that was scraping Facebook of people who were interested in Black Lives Matter and then selling it to police departments in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Then there was Brexit, where all of a sudden it was like, whoa. The Leave campaign has the set your hair on fire, the immigrants are going to take away all your jobs and culture strategy, versus Leave, which was saying stay the course. And I realized, holy moly, Facebook is biased in favor of anger and fear and Therefore, people who run campaigns based on anger and fear have a huge cost advantage from a reach point of view, and that's how Brexit happened. And finally, in October 2016, I'm really concerned, and I write an op-ed for Recode, and instead of publishing it, I sent it to Mark and Cheryl. And they didn't take it seriously. They treated me very graciously, though, okay? They responded instantly. They didn't think it was real. They said, seriously, we think these are just isolated things. They're not representative. We think you're missing it. But here's our senior guy, Dan Rose, who I'm really fond of, really smart, beautiful person. And Dan was so patient with me. For like 10 days in a row, he let me send him stuff and talk to him about this. And then the election happened. And at that point, I went crazy.
How big a role do you think Facebook had to play in the election of Donald Trump? How big a role do you think Facebook had to play in the election of Donald Trump?
Well, I think without Facebook, it is inconceivable he would have been nominated.
He wouldn't have even been nominated.
No, I
if
think
it wasn't
the
for
impact on
Facebook.
the nomination was much greater than on the general election. And the reason is because the Russians had been doing this campaign of essentially trying to divide the American people, to polarize them. So they took these polarizing issues like guns, like immigration, like women, the rights of women, Black Lives Matter, and they would try to divide the country by seeding both sides and causing arguments. And Trump just showed up and adopted the same themes that they've been doing. And I assume it was just because that's the way he thought, as opposed to it was coordinated. So he effectively got this free ride off of 2 or 3 years of Russian investment. And the other Republicans were all running standard Republican campaigns. So they were defenseless. It was effectively, been campaigning for 3 years before they even started. And that's how he got nominated. We can't fix 2016, and that's not my goal. My goal in this whole thing is I believe that the advertising business model creates the wrong incentives for Facebook, and that essentially it forces them to use highly addictive technology and to basically push people to increasingly extreme positions. So polarization is good for their business. Anger and fear are good for their business.
What do you believe we're at risk of now because of the way Facebook is constructed?
But to be clear, it's not just Facebook. All the social media platforms have it to one another, but they're by far the most important. 2 billion active users, 1.3 completely addicted, using it every day. And but there are issues with Google. There are obviously YouTube and search. There are issues with Snapchat. There are issues with Twitter. But Facebook is the most important. Right now, you have 40% of the country who thinks it's okay for a hostile power to interfere in our most basic civil liberties, voting. I mean, they're totally excusing it.
So some people at Facebook haven't taken this criticism so well. Andrew Bosworth, who is a vice president at Facebook, said, "I've worked at Facebook for 12 years and I have to ask, who the F is Roger McNamee?" And he goes on to accuse you of aggrandizing yourself. How do you respond to that?
I'd ask, what are the incentives here? What possible gain do I have from doing what I'm doing now? I still own, my personal net worth is primarily Facebook stock. I'm trying to mentor at a distance. I spent 4 months trying to speak to them without talking to anybody in the outside world. I then spent 5 months after that researching everything I could to understand it. What I would say to Andrew is, I know that Facebook didn't intend to have these outcomes. But this is really simple. And all these bad outcomes are happening, and their users are being harmed. That is their responsibility. All I'm saying to Facebook is, guys, you've won. You don't need to have this kind of business model. There is a way to have a business model that's actually better. My point is, I'd like to spend $10 a month, and I want to be able to control my news feed, right? I want to take the ads out. I want it to be more valuable to them, but I want to be able to have one version of the newsfeed that's politics, one version that's my family, one that's sports, one that's health and fitness, one that's work-related, right? And be able to toggle through them and really control things. And I want them to be successful, and I think they can be.
They say they're hiring 10,000 more people to handle some of these issues, whether it's fake news or abuse. Is that not enough?
Not only is it not enough, it's completely irrelevant. So you cannot fix this damage after the fact with people policing it. These things are embedded in the algorithms. The same thing that makes Facebook the most compelling ad platform for rock and roll bands and consumer products companies and financial services companies makes it the perfect platform for bad actors to abuse people. You only can fix this problem by fixing the algorithms.
How so?
Well, you essentially have to change the business model. You have to make it so that anger and fear are not the predominant ways that people are motivated to act on Facebook. Again, without advertising, if you're not dependent on advertising or not as dependent on advertising, you don't need people to be addicted. You don't need to make them angry. You don't need to make them fearful.
So if they don't make money on ads, then how do they make money?
I'm saying I want to pay them a subscription. I mean, I want to pay them $10 a month. I want to pay them more than twice what they're making from me today. And I'm looking at this and saying, hey, name the price. My point is, you want to still have ads for some people? Fine. But give me the option of having a different thing. I'm saying what they're doing now is the lazy way out. These people are smarter and better than that.
What about regulation?
So I think regulation is important. And the way to think about this is that the most important thing is for the employees of Facebook to recognize that things have come off the rails and that they have the power to fix it.
Have you heard from Mark? Have you heard from Sheryl?
No, but I suspect their lawyers have told them not to. And my point here is I would love to. I mean, I will know. The way you know when people have a problem and that they're serious about fixing it is they reach out to their critics to understand the issues. And I'm sitting here and I understand why people would be mad at me. I really do. But I would have everybody just ask the question, what's actually in this for me, okay? I mean, seriously, I don't need this.
If they don't do this, what do you think will happen?
Our democracy is in extreme peril right now. And we don't have a lot of time to fix this. The elections are coming up in November, and we don't have a lot of time to essentially safeguard them. And this next time, it's not just the Russians you have to worry about. Anybody who's angry. It's terrible for our children. This whole addiction thing is being imposed on kids who are in no position to control their own lives. And it's sort of like, we're doing this in pursuit of profit. For what?
So elevation doesn't really exist anymore, right?
Well, elevation is basically me.
So is this your mission now? I mean, are you still investing, or is this your mission?
No.
This is your mission.
I've been doing this nonstop since October of 2016. The same way Mark outgrew me, this thing should outgrow me too. And I'm not the right person to do this, but there wasn't anybody else. And so I kind of view it as this is a form of public service. At least I hope it is. And I hope people accept it that way. And if they're worried, read what I've written. Think about it. Ask yourself the question, are you addicted? I am, hopelessly so. I can't help but check the thing. And I tell people, turn off your notifications, right? And think about how you use these products. And are they taking over your life? If you're on Slack, do you really want to allow them to browbeat you into having notifications for every little thing, interrupting everything you do? Because if they do, they control you. Take your time back. Take yourself back. These people are all billionaires. They don't need our sympathy. They don't need our help. Well, they do need our help, but they don't need us rolling over for them.
Roger McNamee, longtime tech investor. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you.